Hey everyone, this is Dr. Eric Fields, the psychologist turned weight loss coach. Many of us are overweight because we give in to inappropriate food cravings and urges. If we didn't give in to these inappropriate, unhealthy food cravings and urges, it would be so easy for us to lose weight. This is a reason why people like us have struggled for years and years and years. It's a reason why people like us have successfully lost weight in the past only to gain it back again, and sometimes even more. Listen, you ultimately want to uncover the functions of these unhealthy food cravings and urges, and that will put an end to them for good. But in the meantime, you need some skills or strategies to deal with them until you figure out what these unhealthy cravings are all about. And so the three strategies that I have for you today are fighting the urge, not fighting the urge, and ignoring the urge. Now, you might wonder, well, which strategy do you suggest? And to be honest, it's really person specific. So, in other words, for some personalities, the first strategy works best, for others, the second, and for others, the third. And then there are people where a combination of strategies work the best, or one strategy for certain circumstances and another strategy for the other. So, that is my long-winded way of saying you need to try them out and see. Okay, fighting the urge. This is based off of cognitive psychology or cognitive therapy, really. Fighting the urge has to do with really revealing just why it's so inappropriate or unhealthy. Now, remember here, we're talking about unhealthy food urges. If they were healthy food urges or appropriate food urges, we wouldn't need to fight them because they'd be appropriate. They'd be telling us that we're physiologically ready to eat. We need to eat. We need fuel or energy. But I'm talking about the unhealthy ones, the ones that say, oh, you should eat, when the reason is not good at all. So fighting the urge has to do with calling it out for what it is. Ah, you're wanting me to eat because I'm bored right now and I don't have anything to do because I know I'm not hungry. I just ate an hour ago. Or you're telling me to eat because I just got triggered by a commercial. Or because I'm really not feeling so great today. Fighting the urge is super important, but the only way that it works is if you can really reveal why it's unhealthy. So, I mean, if it's inappropriate, then it means you're not really hungry. And so that's the first thing you got to do. You got to call it out just based on that, right? I know I'm not hungry. And you can even check in with your physiological cues. I don't really have any hunger pangs. In fact, you'll get so good at this that you'll be able to discern the difference between when your stomach is telling you you're hungry, that's appropriate, and when your head is telling you it's time to eat, not appropriate. So, unless, of course, your head and your stomach are in sync, like, in other words, your stomach is growling and your head says, hey, what's going on down there? Oh, it's time to eat. But if it's all in your head and you're not feeling any real physiological sensations to eat, and you will know the difference between the real ones and the fake ones, you need to call it out for what it is. Okay. The second strategy, this one has to do with not fighting the urge. And this is based on an ACT strategy. ACT stands for acceptance and commitment therapy. So it's a different type of therapeutic skill. For this, we do what's called urge surfing. So just like a wave, right? Rather than fighting a wave, a surfer goes with the wave. They ride the wave. They don't fight the wave. They kind of let the wave take them. And that's essentially what this is based on, is not fighting it, but just kind of riding it out. So you feel an urge and it's inappropriate. It is going to have a pretty typical set of stages. So at first is the building stage. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then there's the climax, right? That's like the crest of the wave when it's at its peak intensity. And then it eventually starts subsiding after the wave crashes or rolls out, okay? And so what you're basically going to do is you're just going to observe this wave. And you're just going to simply take an outside perspective and not get so frazzled by it. That's the most important with this skill. So many of us, we have an urge and then we say to ourselves like, oh my God, I have to give into it. It's going to be so uncomfortable. I need to give into it. If I don't, I'll be so, distressed. And basically, you just need to look at it as a predictable wave that's going to build in intensity and eventually subside. And so all you're doing is observing it. Oh, wow, here comes an urge. The urge is getting stronger. I know it's going to keep getting a little bit more strong, and then eventually it's going to climax. Let's see if I can identify when it is at its peak. Maybe now? Nope, it's still building. Oh, here it is. It's at its peak now. I see. Okay, so we're going to get ready then for it to start to subside because it's very predictable. I know this about my urges. Oh, I just noticed a little reduction in intensity. It's starting to go away. And there might be a little ripple at the end where it builds a little bit again and then it subsides. No urge will ever last longer than a half an hour from start to finish. And that's the most intense, longest duration urge that you can possibly have because the body cannot maintain that hyper aroused state. So that's the thing that you want to tell yourself. I know I can wait this out. And chances are, by the way, folks, it's not going to be a half an hour. Many of these urges are like 10 minutes or less. And so you tell yourself you can wait it out, and you tell yourself you're just going to simply observe it. And what this does is it programs you to not be so reactive and to not be such an alarmist that when you get an urge, it means you absolutely have to do something about it. It's very meditative in its practice, and it's just kind of being present with the urge and not fighting it. Okay, now the third strategy is ignoring the urge. For this strategy, I like to employ what I call the delay game. And that is, okay, I'm having an urge right now. I bet you in 10 minutes, it will probably not be as strong. Let's see if that's true. I'll set my stopwatch for 10 minutes. We all have smartphones, so they all have a timer. Now, the key for this is you do something during those 10 minutes. Play some silly little online game. For me, I like to play the online Yahtzee game. Go read a book. Go read an article you've been meaning to read. Phone a friend. Do something. Maybe it's a work task that you put off. Maybe it's you got to clean some dishes out of the sink. And then in 10 minutes, when the timer goes off, check in with your urge and see where it's at. If it's still kind of strong, then say, all right, let me give it another 10 minutes. And when you say this to yourself, also give yourself permission to eat after those 10 minutes if it's still just too strong and you feel like it's just intolerable. And the reason why we do this is to kind of quell the teenager inside of us, that rebellious part of the brain that is saying, like, I want to do this now. I want to eat now. And you say, okay, in 10 minutes, let's see. And if I still feel uncomfortable, I'll let you eat. And the trick is that eventually postponing is building up your coping skills and your resiliency to these urges. Even if you give into it eventually, the longer you can delay it, the stronger you are becoming in terms of warding them off. And many times you're going to find that eventually you delay it to a point where you're just not into it anymore. This is Dr. Fields with some strategies for dealing with inappropriate and unhealthy food cravings and urges. I hope this helps. I wish all of you the best success. Hope you all had a great weekend, and I will talk to you soon.